to be the filament, the hook, and the basal body. The flagellum is, of course, attached in the cytoplasmic membrane from which it originates. It goes through the peptidoglycan, and if it is a gram-negative bacteria, it even extends through the outer membrane, and then the filament and the hook are seen on the outside. So as such, the filament is the main body of the flagellum that we see outside of the cell, and this extends from the cell surface to the tip where it is synthesized at the tip. We'll talk about that in a minute. This filament is actually a hollow, rigid cylinder. So this filament, if you're looking at this green structure, is a hollow, rigid cylinder-like, and it is composed of a protein called flagellin. So the flagellin protein is the main component of your flagellar filament. Okay. Some bacteria have a sheet around the filament, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. But most of the time, and we are looking at the flagellar arrangement, and we just saw those flagella sticking out of the cell, the filament is not enclosed in anything, and it is free, like a hair-like structure sticking out. Now, this rigid cylinder of the filament is now attached into what we call the basal body. So this is what is depicted in this figure as the basal body, in which the filament is attached into it. The hook is almost like a cup-like structure in which the filament is attached, and the hook is the one that will allow the rotation of the flagella, because the hook is then attached to what is called the basal body, and the basal body is composed of a lot of rings which are attached in different layers of the outer membrane, the peptidoglycan, and into the plasma membrane. So as such, if you look at the basal body of gram-negative bacteria, it's much different from the basal body which is found in your gram-positive bacteria. You can see the gram-positive bacteria have a thick peptidoglycan, and then they have a cytoplasmic membrane only. So the ring structures are fewer in gram-positive flagellum, whilst there are many more ring structures which are depicted as attached or going through these special layers. So if you look at the gram-negative basal body of the flagellum, you will see the C ring, which is the cytoplasmic part of the ring, the MS ring, the P ring, and the L ring. So those are at least 4 different ring structures that that touch upon different layers of the cell wall structure of the gram-negative, whilst the basal body is much simpler, with only a couple of these rings in your gram-positive. Now, you realize that this the filament is, of course, a rigid structure. So all the motility is based, the ability to move this flagellum comes in the basal body, which has some special proteins that we talk about. The MOT protein, that MOT A and B are the 2 proteins that will make contact with the M ring and the switch the C ring, and power this rotation of these rings. And as these rings will rotate, the flagellum will move also. So looking at it also, that how is this flagellum synthesized? Of course, the flagellar synthesis is a very complex process. It requires many genes and many gene products that will eventually start to produce this flagellum in the cell. So you also realize that the flagellum is composed of a protein, and this protein can only be synthesized in the cytoplasmic area where the ribosomes are. And this protein, once it is synthesized, has to be taken out of the cell to be assembled on the outside through the cytoplasmic membrane, through the peptidoglycan, and through the outer membrane. So you would wonder how this protein is transported across all these structures to be able to assemble on the outside. So we know that the filament subunits, which we call the flagellin proteins, they are capable of self-assembly. Now, most of these proteins, when they are put together, you need enzymes to put them together, right? In all your biochemistry, that's in your biological metabolic processes, we know that we need enzymes to put things together. Here, we call the flagellar synthesis, the filament synthesis at least, is a self-assembly process where these the flagellant proteins are extruded out through the basal body, and they are put out, and they are assembled in a very helical form on the surface. And each flagellum unit that comes in gets assembled at the tip of the flagellum. So as such, the flagellum grows at the tip, not at the base of the filament. The filament is assembled at the tip. And there is a very important protein, which is the filament cap. The filament cap, if it was not there, if we have a mutant in our cell, mutation in our cell, and the filament cap protein is not there, these flagellant units are thrown out of the cell without assemblage. So the assemblage, self-assembly, requires the filament cap, which allows to add each unit of these filament to allow the filament to grow into a long flagellum eventually. Okay, so this is an important difference that you will see. So the growth of our filament in bacteria occurs at the tip, not at the base. Whilst your archaeal flagella are very different, they are not hollow. And there's not just one protein in them. There's major flagellant proteins, different flagellant proteins. And the growth of the flagellum occurs at the base, not at the tip. So this is a major difference that has been seen in archaeal flagella versus your bacterial flagella. And this secretion, this proteins to make the filament for the archaeal flagellum seems to be related to a type 4 secretion system, which we will talk about very soon, what these type 4 secretion systems, which allow proteins to be extruded out of the cell. So we will talk about them, but just remember the archaeal flagella requires the type 4 secretion system to secrete these different flagellant proteins to assemble this filament, and the filament grows at the base, not at the tip. Okay, the major difference there. When we talk about motility a little bit, and I'm sure that when we read those 2 papers that will be assigned for your first reading, you will get more information on this. I'm just going to kind of refer to some types of motilities, but I'll let you, the students in their presentation, give you more information on these different motilities. So if you're looking at the flagellar movement, which we know is due to the presence of flagella, this flagellar movement is usually described as a forward run, a tumble. Those are the 2 types of movement that we have seen when bacteria have the flagella. So when we look at it, the flagellum is rotating, right? The filament is rotating, which is due, of course, to the basal body here, and of course the proton motive force allows this flagellar filament to rotate. It is not ATP, it is the proton motive force, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. The proton motive force drives this flagellum to rotate, and as it rotates the counterclockwise way, you will see the bacterium moves forward. When it does the clockwise rotation of the flagellum, the cell will stop moving forward, it will stop and tumble. So that's the 2 movements that have been described in terms of your flagellar movement, forward run and a tumble. So if it is a single flagellum, it will do the same. If it is a peritrichous and multiple flagella, again, a group of flagella will rotate in the same direction, either moving it forward, and then if it goes in the reverse direction, your cell will tumble and they will all spread out. It's kind of a good depiction of how your swimming movement based on flagella occurs. But besides this flagellar movement, there are different bacteria that will have different types of motility. One of them is called the spirochete motility. This is found in spiral bacteria, and we'll show you in the next slide as to how these flagella are arranged in these spirochetes, where they show a spirochete motility. Then there are two other motilities which we call twitching motility and gliding motility, which will also be shown in the next pictures or so. Now, before we go into the different types of motilities, I'd like to also inform or to recap your information on chemotaxis. So those bacteria that have more flagella, they're capable of showing a property which we call chemotaxis. So chemotaxis depends on the flagella being present, but it is a separate function. Okay, a bacteria may have flagella and may not be able to show chemotaxis, because that is another genetic property which requires some chemoreceptors on the surface of the cell. So having flagella and having chemoreceptors will make the bacterium motile and be able to respond to some chemical signals. Okay, so these two properties are together and yet they are different. Okay, so some of those bacteria that have chemotaxis will be able to move towards a chemical attractant. We will call that positive chemotaxis. Whilst if they move away from the chemical signals, then that is considered to be a negative chemotaxis. And this is all dependent on chemoreceptors being present on the surface of the cell. And of course, these chemoreceptors are capable of gauging the concentration of the chemical attractants. And as the cell has to move towards where there is more of those chemicals, so there is a concentration gradient that is looked at as to how fast it will move towards it. Not only are chemicals capable of moving the bacteria, but there are some bacteria that are capable of moving towards different temperatures in their environment. Some have photoreceptors and they move towards light. Some move towards oxygen concentration. Some can even move towards osmotic pressure differences. And some also are capable of moving based on gravity also. So definitely different cues are there for different movements in terms of chemotaxis, as we call it. And we talk about a little bit about how fast the flagellum rotates to take them towards the chemical signal. So as such, you will see that the propellers that the bacterium flagellum has with a rapid rotation up to 1,100 revolutions per second is occurring. And the most appreciable speed that you would see in some bacteria, they will go about 60 cell lengths per second. So as fast as that, like your super car, you know. So here's a 60 cell lengths per second kind of a speed can be achieved. And we know, and I talked about already, that the counterclockwise rotation of the flagellum causes a forward motion, whilst the clockwise rotation causes the stop and the tumble rotations movement. So if you're looking at putting the two together with the flagellar rotation versus chemotaxis, you would see that when there is a gradient, and I'm looking at when the cell does not have any chemotaxis stimulant there, they will go in their own way, run, tumble, then change direction, run again, tumble, run again. So they can change direction when the tumble occurs, and they will be just randomly moving around. Okay, what if there is a chemical signal present in their environment? You can see the gradient being showing that this is a higher concentration around here. Their movement will still be in the same way as a run tumble, but the runs will be longer and the tumbles will be infrequent, so that they keep running in the same direction towards a higher concentration. So this is this behavior of the bacterium is altered by the temporal concentration of the chemical which may be present in the surrounding. So definitely it's still using the same clockwise or counterclockwise rotation of the flagellum, yet it can achieve chemotaxis and gauge the presence of a signal or a chemical compound in various concentrations around it. So if you're looking at chemotaxis, a negative chemotaxis where it has to move away, it is a very similar kind of a movement, but the opposite response will be there, and it will be moving away from something that is harmful to it. This is a very cute little experiment that I find very fascinating to be able to show negative and positive bacterial chemotaxis. If we had a lab attached to this course, I would have definitely used this very old first showing how chemotaxis works in bacteria. Let me explain to you these two petri dishes. Here is a petri dish where there are three bacteria colonies are being represented. Here is a colony of a non-motile bacterium. You will usually see it to be a small. Now these media are very softer media. These are not your hard, regular media agar plates that we have. You can see a smaller colony when the bacterium is a non-motile bacterium. This is a colony. The next one up here is the colony of a motile bacterium, but it is not chemotactic. That means it does not have the chemoreceptors. This is a mutant probably, which cannot, so they will be able to move, but to a certain extent, and the colony is a little smaller. Here is the bacterium that is chemotactic as well as a motile bacterium, and you can see the colony is large. And not only the colony is large, but the response to chemotaxis you can see in rings of growth or movement of the bacteria away from the major colony. Now, in this case, there are two signals in the medium. One is the serine, which this bacterium can consume, and there is aspartate as also in the medium, where the bacteria cannot use it as much, and it's not as powerful an attractant. So you will see a ring of bacteria moving when they consume serine, and then there is a ring of bacteria which is less powerful attractant, will be the aspartate. Here is the negative chemotaxis being shown on your agar plate. Again, this agar plate is made up of, again, very soft agar, and in the soft agar we've cut out plugs, like bore some holes into it, and what we have put in these plugs, center plugs, are different concentration of acetate. Acetate is a negative signal for bacteria. They usually move away from acetate. So if you're looking at different concentrations of acetate, you're going from a smaller concentration of acetate in this plug versus more and more and more and more. And this medium, when it was poured, it was already embedded. It already had bacteria in it. And now you're looking at the migration of bacteria based on the concentration of acetate in the plugs. So you can see that within 30 minutes, your bacteria are moving away from the plug, which has the highest concentration. So here, the concentration of acetate was very little. You do not see this migration pattern. As you go into higher and higher amount of acetate in these plugs, you see the rings of bacteria that have moved away from the acetate. And so this gives you the idea that concentration in negative chemotaxis is also very important and can be portrayed in this very simple experiment. These two make sense to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we move on. Okay, so as such, we talk about mechanism of the flagellar movement. Flagellum is, of course, a two-part motor and producing some torque. So there are two parts that we will talk about, the rotor and the stator. The rotor, of course, is the we call it the FLIG protein, which is in the C ring, and the MS ring, which turns and interacts with the stator proteins. The MOT A and the MOT B proteins are the stator proteins, and they actually form a channel through the plasma membrane. So here is the major action that is going to happen, where when the proton motive force will allow the protons to come back into the cell. You're familiar with the PMF, right? So this proton motive force, where positive protons are moving into the cell, when they move through this channel MOT A and MOT B, they will allow the rotor to rotate. And here is the model that you will see kind of giving you an idea that here is the MS ring and here is your C ring, which are located in the plasma membrane of your gram-positive as well as gram-negative. And the MOT proteins actually form channels through which the hydrogen protons will be transported, created by the proton motor force. And this movement of the protons will allow these rings to turn. And as the rings will turn, your filament will also rotate. So giving it to you in a very simple explanation here. So different proteins that are important in the movement of the cell, they are the C ring proteins, the MS ring proteins, and the MOT proteins. These are the ones that allow the rotation of the basal body, and the basal body eventually being hooked up to the hook, and the filament will allow the rotation of your bacteria, of the flagellum. So we talk a little bit about spirochete motility. We have only a couple of minutes. The spirochete motility, of course, is shown by bacteria that are spiral. They have their flagella come out at one end, and this flagellum actually is winds around the whole body of the spiral bacterium, and over it is a sheath. So the actual flagellum is is covered up by a sheath. Okay, and this we usually call it the axial fibril. Instead of the filament, we term it as an axial fibril, which is the main body of the filament of your flagellum there. And of course, the outer sheath is the one that is shown in dots like this, that is covering up. So it is a flagellum that is intracellular. It's within the cell. It is covered up. And of course, here is the insertion pore where it is coming out of. Okay. So a flagellum actually remains in a periplasmic space inside of the outer sheath. The motility that it will show is like a corkscrew motility, where it will be flexing and spinning, not a directed movement. Like your other bacteria flagella movement, which we call swimming movement, is a very directed movement. In this case, it is very much flexing and a spinning movement, not as fast as your bacterial movement would be. Coming to the last category of your motilities, which is twitching and gliding movement, which you will be studying in the papers that we have for you to read. This twitching and gliding movement will involve type 4 pili and the slime also. Twitching will be where pili at ends of the cell will help in contact of the pili with the surface, and then flipping the cell over to make it into a twitching movement. So this movement is very short, intermittent, jerky kind of a movement. And cells are always in contact with each other as well as with the surface when they do this twitching movement. And of course, the gliding movement is a very smooth kind of a movement, which is depicted in one or two of these two slides that we show a little bit. So gliding movement occurs usually as if the bacterium is gliding over a hard surface. So this movement is portrayed by very few bacterium, very special bacterium. And this is because some of them can secrete some slime, and they have some ratchet proteins that involves the movement in the outer membrane. So here is one of this depicted by a Flavobacterium johnsoni, which shows, this is a model for it in the gliding movement. And you can see that this is the outer membrane, and this is your cytoplasmic membrane in which your main proteins are there for the movement. And again, your hydrogen protons, creating the proton motor force, causing the hydrogen protons to go in, is the main energy that will be used for the rotation or for the movement of the cell. Here in this case, the proteins are embedded in the outer membrane, and they make surface contact with the surface on which it is going to glide. And you can see that these attachments, when they do to the surface of to any surface, they remain, and the rest of the cell moves because of their attachment and the proton motor force. So this is a very complicated kind of a movement. And this is the one that you will be describing in the paper, where Myxococcus xanthus is a bacterium that is a rod-shaped bacterium. It shows two types of motility. One which would be considered as a social motility, it's also a gliding motility, and the other one which is also a gliding motility, but it will be considered as an adventurous motility. Now, social motility is when these bacteria group in large group move towards the same direction, and they use the type 4 pillars for that. While the adventurous motility, which is also gliding motility, where slime is released and adhesion complexes are made along the track, and they allow the bacterium to move individually away from the group. And that would be considered as the adventurous motility found in Myxococcus xanthus. So this microbe is very fascinating for us to be able to show two types of gliding motilities, social as well as the adventurous one. I've got to stop now.